Welcome guys to the Maze Runner marking the text lesson. This will be a grade. You will mark the text with me and we'll simplify the questions, we'll prove our answers, and you need any 3 color highlighters to prove your answers and to highlight and to take notes with me. At the end of the video, you should have the questions completed and all the markings on my reading passage should be on your reading passage, and this will go in the turn-in bin. So let's begin. Let's look at our title. Well, you must always preview the title. The Maze Runner. Excerpt from Chapter 1 by James Dashner. An excerpt is a part of a chapter. So this is just a small section of Chapter 1 from the fantasy fiction series, The Maze Runner, and this is the first one. So follow along with me. He began his new life standing up and surrounded by cold darkness and stale, dusty air. Metal ground against metal. A lurching shudder shook the floor beneath him. He fell down at the sudden movement and shuffled backward on his hands and feet, drops of sweat beating on his forehead despite the cool air. His back struck a hard metal wall. He slid along it until he hit the corner of the room. Sinking to the floor, he pulled his legs up tight against his body, hoping his eyes would soon adjust to the darkness. So we need to annotate, we need to mark the text. In 3 or 5 words, we need to write the summary, the gist of it. So let's write this together. These first 2 paragraphs is describing a character stuck in something. And we're going to use our highlighters to highlight some clues, some clue words. Hard metal wall. So please highlight this with me. Darkness. Ground against metal. Shudder shook the floor. Shuffled backward. Cool air. So we need to ask ourselves, good readers, look at the text evidence, and then you need to put them together and make a prediction. Ground against metal, shudder shook the floor, shuffled backward, cool air, a hard metal wall, darkness. He is stuck in an elevator. So we're going to write he, the contraction of the word he is. He's stuck in an elevator. So that's all we do. We just write the gist in 3 or 5 words next to every 2 paragraphs or every paragraph, whatever works for you, but you need to take notes on the margins. Let's keep going. With another jolt, the room jerked upward like an old lift in a mine shaft. I want you to highlight this. The room jerked upward like an old lift in a mine shaft. This is an example of a figurative language device. The author is using a simile. Now, when we have similes, we always have our clue word. But you just don't need to have the clue word. 2 things need to be compared, and they're joined by the clue word like. So the room jerked upward. The room is being compared to a mine shaft. So this is the first thing that's being compared, the second thing being compared, and your clue word is like. So please write this with me. So the author is still describing this elevator. Now, what do we think the word jolt means? So the word jolt could mean a jump, movement. So please write that with me. Paragraph 4. Harsh sounds of chains and pulleys, like the workings of an ancient steel factory, echoed through the room, bouncing off the walls with a hollow, tiny whine. The lightless elevator swayed back and forth as it ascended, turning the boy's stomach sour with nausea. A smell like burnt oil invaded his senses. making him feel worse. He wanted to cry, but no tears came. He could only sit there, alone, waiting. So now we're going to write the gist of what's going on right now, but we need to highlight our clues. Let's see, what could a good clue be? Good readers ask themselves and they go back. Harsh sounds of chains. The boy's stomach sour with nausea. He wanted to cry. He could only sit there alone waiting, making him feel worse. Ooh, we know it's an elevator. We have our proof now. We made a great prediction. So now, how can we sum this up in 5 words? So let's write our character. We don't know his name yet. He, because it's been using the pronoun he, we know that's a boy. He is scared, and it's been describing it's been describing the setting and the elevator. All these details are just helping you to create a visual, a picture of the elevator. So he's still in the elevator. That's all we write. That's the gist. And there's also another example of a simile. So get another color highlighter. The boy's stomach sour with nausea. A smell like burnt oil invaded his senses. We have our clue word like. And what 2 things are being compared? They're comparing burnt oil to the boy's stomach, like his nausea. They're comparing his nausea to burnt oil. So make sure to highlight this with me. What I do, you do. We find out his name in paragraph 5. My name is Thomas, he thought. That was the only thing he could remember about his life. Now, let's pick up our highlighter. The author included, to repeat that word, that twice, to show that he is stuttering. Now, why would this character be stuttering right now? We have to ask ourselves. He's scared in the elevator, and he's stuck there. So you need to make a text to self-connection. This reminds me of, or how would you feel if you were Thomas? So right now he is thinking, he's stuttering, and he's trying to get his thoughts together. He didn't understand how this could be possible. His mind functioned without flaw, trying to calculate his surroundings and predicament. Knowledge flooded his thoughts, facts and images, memories and details of the world and how it works. He pictured snow on trees, running down a leaf-strewn road, eating a hamburger, the moon casting a pale glow on a grassy meadow, swimming in a lake, a busy city square with hundreds of people bustling about their business. Now this word's highlighted, it's in bold, it's underlined, I meant. So it's going to be asking you in the questions what the word means. So it's very important to already keep in mind that you should be highlighting your context clues so you can plug in the possible answer choices instead of the word that's in bold and underlined. So let's go back and write on the margins what is happening in paragraph 6. So we need to ask ourselves, good readers, go back and look at the clues. He didn't understand. He's trying to calculate. So above, cross out the word calculate. The word calculate means think. He's trying to think. His surroundings, that basically means the elevator. So please write that down. And predicament. Knowledge flooded his thoughts, facts and images, memories and details of the world and how it works. He pictured snow on trees, so he's having a memory, he's having a flashback. He pictured snow on trees, running down a leaf-strewn road, eating a hamburger, the moon casting a pale glow on a grassy meadow. We're going to box this and also highlight swimming in a lake, a busy city square with hundreds of people bustling about their business. This right here is a flashback. A flashback is a memory. So why do you think if he's stuck in this elevator and he's scared, sometimes people like to think of a happy memory or a good thought to help them keep themselves together. So this was a flashback, a memory. And you have to ask yourself, in paragraph 5 it says, my name is Thomas, he thought. That was the only thing he could remember about his life. So now he's trying to put the pieces together, and this flashback came back randomly. So the whole point of paragraph 6, the gist is, we know his name is Tom, so let's write Tom is trying to figure it out. He's trying to figure out the situation. So please write this with me. Paragraph 7. And yet he didn't know where he came from, or how he'd gotten inside the dark lift, or who his parents were. So lift right here could also mean the elevator. So out to the side, let's write elevator. That's a synonym, a word that means the same. Or who his parents were. He didn't even know his last name. So notice how we keep reading the pronoun he. So this is written in third person. So the author is choosing to include the pronouns he to describe the character Thomas. And this is in third person. He didn't even know his last name. Images of people flashed across his mind, but there was no recognition. Their faces replaced with haunted smears of color. He could not think of one person he knew, or recall a single conversation. So let's look at this word recall. The prefix re means, again, we've been studying prefixes, so it means he's remembering something again. And your clue word is here, new. So highlight this with me. So it means new again. It gives you a context clue there. So what could we write for paragraph 7 on the margins? What was the gist, the summary? What was this mostly about? We're going to write Tom is having flashbacks. Tom is having flashbacks. Tom is having flashbacks. Have the word re equals again written down. So now let's look at paragraph 8. The room continued its ascent, swaying. Thomas grew immune to the ceaseless rattling of the chains that pulled him upward. A long time passed. Minutes stretched into hours, although it was impossible to know for sure because every second seemed an eternity. No, he was smarter than that. Trusting his instincts, he knew he'd been moving for roughly half an hour. So, time has passed. Let's write that down. Time has passed. The room continued swaying. So the word swaying means moving. Thomas grew immune to the ceaseless rattling of the chains. So highlight immune. Immune means has no effect on him. So please write this down. We know that time has passed. That was the gist of this paragraph because we have our clues. A long time has passed. Eternity is another word that's related to time. Roughly half an hour. Let's look at paragraph 9. Strangely enough, he felt his fear whisked away like a swarm of gnats caught in the wind. It's comparing his fear to a swarm of gnats using the clue word like. So this is a simile. His fear is the first thing that's being compared, and a swarm of gnats is the second thing being compared. It's talking about gnats. Replaced by an intense curiosity. He wanted to know where he was and what was happening. So we need to write out onto the margins what paragraph 9 was mostly about. So we'll write, he's not scared anymore. So the character of Tom is having some development. From the beginning, he was stuck, he was scared, he was trying to figure it out. Time is passing, and now he's not scared anymore. He's getting himself together. His fear, whisked away like a swarm of gnats caught in the wind, means that his fear is being taken away. And strangely enough, that happened. He doesn't know why. Now he wants to know where he was and what was happening. So he is curious. Question mark. So he is curious. Let's look at the last paragraph. With a groan. That's going to be an onomatopoeia. That's a sound word. So why would the author decide to use a sound word? We'll just put an O right there for onomatopoeia. And then a clunk. That's another sound word. So why do you think the author is using all these sound words? Probably because he wants to create a visual in your head, and he wants you to be able to hear what Tom is going through. So with the groan and then a clunk, the rising room halted. That means stopped. Remember, you should be using your dictionary. If there's a word that you don't know, you cross it out as you're reading and you replace it with the word with the definition or another synonym. The room stopped. The sudden change jolted Thomas from his huddled position and threw him across the hard floor as he scrambled to his feet. He felt the room sway less and less until it finally stilted. So the word stilled, until it finally stilled, meaning he is still. Everything fell silent. So we need to write down that the elevator stopped and he got up. He's scrambling. He felt the room sway less because he's in an elevator. That means he is. So sway less means it's not moving as much. So these are all the notes that you should have on your excerpt from The Maze Runner. The reason that you take notes, this is something that I do when I read. It helps me to understand what I'm reading about. I'm able to break it down. So please have all of these notes. You can always go back and rewind and pause at any time if you need to go back and have all of these notes written down. You will get a grade for marking the text with me. The second lesson, I'm only going to do the marking of the text for the first lesson, and then the second video will be us going through the questions together and proving them. So if you have this written down, great job. Keep your paper because you're going to be having a second lesson on answering the questions and proving your answers with your highlighters.